So I've been through a lot in my life. I've lived through drug addiction. I've broken both of my hips in separate accidents. I've had a car catch on fire and explode. I've been hit head on by a semi truck. I went years without seeing members of my own family. I've gone through bankruptcy. I've gone through multiple job layoffs. I've gone through a long custody battle just to stay in my son's life. You name it, I've been through it. And I turned 41 this year in July. And there were moments when I've looked back at the years behind me and wondered whether I had wasted my life. A lot of people, they reach this age and they start looking at the time that's already passed and asking themselves what they actually did with it. A man starts thinking about who he was in his 20s and 30s and comparing that person to who he is now. That kind of reflection makes you start asking really hard questions about the choices that you had made. My life, it started out rough, pretty rough and chaotic. My teenage years and my early 20s were marked with drug addiction. And during that same period, I was dealing with thoughts and behaviors that came from a very dark place. I dealt with a lot of depression, a lot of insecurity, and there were times when I was cutting myself and trying to deal with pain that way, pain that I did not know how to handle at such a young age. So those years, they weren't about building a future or making any form of progress for myself. Those years were about really just getting through the day and dealing with my own mind and the choices that I was making at that time when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And during my mid-20s, I believe I was 25, I became obsessed with riding bikes. That became my new drug. I got into fixed gear bikes in, I believe it was 2010, when a friend of mine, who was a friend and a former coworker at the coffee shop I was working at in Texas, he introduced me to fixed gears, and I immediately fell in love with fixed gears, and I bought one. I started riding every day. I used it to commute, and then in February of 2011, I moved back to Portland, Oregon. And so that's where my brother and my nephew were. They were already living there. And I was there in 2009 and a little bit of 2010, and then went back to Texas and fell in love with biking and coffee. I was a barista. And Portland just made sense because I had family there, and it's the place to be if you were into coffee and bikes. I was super hipster back then, so riding fixed gears and slinging Spro, that was a huge part of my life. And I had a hell of a time riding all over Portland and having adventures every day. But in that same year, in June of 2011, I was riding on the waterfront by OHSU, which is the hospital. There's a sky tram that goes up there. Conveniently enough, so there was a construction area, and I was riding, and I got my wheel stuck in the train tracks, and then it locked my wheel, and then I fell off, and I hit the concrete hard, and so I ended up breaking my hip. And the physical pain from that injury, it was the worst pain that I've ever felt in my life. And that accident was the first time I had ever had to have surgery for an injury. I had to go into the knife, and they had to put 3 titanium screws into my hip. And the recovery, it took months. I was on crutches I couldn't bear any weight for a month or two, but I was on crutches for 4 to 6 months before I could ride again. And then fast forward to 2012, my parents, they had visited my brother and me and my nephew in Portland. We hadn't seen them in about a year or so. So they visited that summer. And that was the last time I saw my parents and my sister. Because years went by after that without seeing them again. Because in 2014, while I was still in Portland, my girlfriend was pregnant with my son, and our relationship fell apart, and so she left in March of that year. And then in August of 2014, I moved across the country to where she was living here in Michigan, so I could be in my son's life. And of course, I had to go through a very hard custody battle that started in January of 2015. So I had to deal with I had to deal with that. I had to deal with supervised parenting time, being dehumanized in that way, false allegations, parental alienation. It was a living hell. And during the early part of that fight, I didn't have a car. I still just had a fixed gear bike. And my son was living 30 miles away from where I was living. And in February and March of 2015, because February 1st was the day that I met my son. So in February and March of 2015, I rode my fixed gear bike in the snow, 60 miles round trip twice a week just to see him. I got to see him for 4 hours a week, 2 hours each day. And at that same time, I was also working third shift at a warehouse doing forklift work. And so my sleep schedule, it was completely flipped while I was doing that. But like I said, I didn't get to meet my son until he was almost 4 months old. And when I saw him for the first time and he looked at me, I could tell that he knew who I was. When I held him, it felt natural for the both of us. That was one of the most incredible moments of my life. It's really hard to describe. If you're a parent, you know. Becoming a parent, it changes you, and it changed me a lot. That experience, it meant even more to me because of what I had gone through just to be his dad. And there were periods where I did not get to see him, and times where I was treated like a second-class citizen in my own son's life. Every decision I made during those years, and still to this day, is about staying in his life and being an active father, an active influence. And during those same years, those earlier years of his life, there were other things happening that it made my life feel a bit more unstable. Because in 2017, the first car that I had finally gotten, I had it for a little over a year. Yeah, no, I had it for almost 2 years at that point. It was a 93 Volvo cherry red, and it developed the fuel line got cut somehow, and it caught on fire and it ignited, and it exploded in a way. I believe it was the tires that exploded, but it burst into flames. And then I got another car. I got a 2008 Honda Civic, but not long. I didn't have that very long. Had that maybe a year and a half. Yeah, it was about a year and a half I had that car. And then I was on my way to pick up my son when it was kind of a snowy, icy day, and this semi-truck driver who was distracted, he was on his phone, and he swerved into my lane in the oncoming traffic and hit me head on. And so I crashed and totaled my car and broke four of my ribs in that accident. And then years later, so I hadn't been riding my fixed gear bike since I think 2018. That's when I kind of stopped riding my bike, was around 2018 at some point. And I decided to get back into it. I think, I got my bike stolen. And so I decided that I wanted to get back into it because I started to miss it. And so in 2021, I bought another fixed gear bike off of eBay. Really nice bike, real nice Jameis bike, brakeless fixed. And then 10 days after buying it, I got into another accident. I didn't check the lock ring. It wasn't tight enough, and I was track standing at a light, and it came loose, and then my foot just dropped, and then I fell over. And I'm really tall. I'm 6'3", and this bike is meant for it's a 63-inch frame, or 63 centimeter frame or whatever. So it's for tall dudes, and my seat is up really high, and so I fell from a very high spot and just landed on my hip, and it completely shattered the pelvic neck, or whatever it's called, the place that's in between the ball of the hip and the rest of it. So that was incredibly painful. And yeah, that was the second time I broke my other hip. So this was my right hip that I broke, but in 2011 I broke my left hip. And just like this hip, it was even worse than the last one. The last one was a hairline fracture. This one, it splintered and shattered, and so they had to do 2 incisions instead of 1. There were a lot more. There were titanium rods and screws. More additional mechanisms were required, and that recovery, it took months, like 4 to 6 months. And so having 2 broken hips before the age of 40 it's pretty rare. I mean, I walk fine, but unfortunately, I don't ride anymore. I truly miss riding, but I don't want to risk breaking anything else or re-breaking anything else. I do enjoy walking, so. But then also work was it was unstable for a long stretch. So, I mean, I was a barista from 2010 to 2016. And in 2016, I had to pivot, and I got my first sales job because I needed more money to survive, to pay child support and support myself. And my personality is not wired for sales. I don't know how much Myers-Briggs actually means anything. I don't know if it means anything or not, but I'm an INTJ. I took what's called a Harrison assessment. It's for career placement, and sales was the career that I would get the least enjoyment and fulfillment out of. So it was something I really had to try. And because my personality is not wired for sales at all. But I stayed in that field for almost a decade because I needed the income. And between 2019 and 2023, I went through multiple layoffs with some of these tech companies and startups. And so, but during those same years, the world around me started to change. Right? The social division was growing stronger, and the economy, of course, has just been going downhill. Inflation, all of that. And you can relate to this. Just a lot of things in society just have started feeling more unstable by the day. And, I was dealing with my own problems while the world around me also felt like it was shifting in a downward trajectory. And I spent a lot of time thinking about where things were heading and what any of it meant for me in particular, and for humanity. And I saw the reasons why. And becoming a dad, it allowed me to open up my eyes to the truth of what's really going on in this world, who really runs the show, all of the lies that I was taught to believe, all of the programming, just getting rid of all of this programming, years and decades of programming. And eventually I started talking about my experiences publicly on this channel. I did not start this channel with some big strategy. I didn't. I just knew that I wanted to do this. And at the very beginning of my channel, I had 37 subscribers. And the videos, just like this one, where it was simply me talking about what I had been through and what I had learned from it. And over the course of a year, this channel has grown so much. Now I have more than 50,000 subscribers. People connected with people are connecting to what I'm saying, what I had been saying. It's been mind-blowing to see that. When I had that one video go nuts in July, it's been exponential growth ever since. And it's been wild to see so many men connecting with what I have to say. And this channel has just opened doors that I never expected because of what I have been through. I knew that I was meant for more than what I was doing in sales. I knew that I was meant to use my lived experiences and the knowledge that I've gained to help other men. And that's what I was able to start doing. Because men were reaching out to me, wanting to talk, and I spend time on one-on-one calls with guys who are dealing with their own situations and trying to figure out what to do next. And those conversations eventually turned into a consulting business where I am able to help men deal with problems that I've experienced myself. And then I also wrote an eBook that I have, and all that stuff is linked down below. So if you're if you're someone that is looking for guidance, you're dealing with high conflict co-parenting or a divorce, parental alienation, or if you're even for men that are looking to do exactly that, start a YouTube channel, and they need some guidance on how to start and some tips on that, then those links are down below if you want to go check that out. And then also my ebook's down there as well. It's 32, 34 pages. It's nothing crazy. But the reality is that the fight to be in my son's life, it didn't just happen years ago. It never stopped. It's been continuous. There have been things that continuously happen. It was not a one and done experience. It's something that I continuously have to deal with. There are all kinds of difficulties I have to go through. And I had to go back to family court recently. So from the middle of August of 2025, so last year, until the end of January of this year, I had to sit in that uncertainty again while fighting for my time with my son. And those 6 months, they were extremely difficult. They were very stressful because when the court system is involved, you never know what's going to happen as a man. And thankfully I had this channel during that time, and I had all of you, and many of you supported me, and some of you even donated to help me pay my attorney fees. And that support, it meant more to me than I can properly explain. It saved me. And it saved my relationship with my son. When someone reaches 40 and starts wondering whether their life was wasted, they usually compare themselves to some idea of how life should have panned out, what it should be. And my life never looked like that. And a lot of people watching this video know that their lives haven't looked like that either. Not what they had pictured or what they had hoped for. What I can say honestly is that I've lived through addiction. I've lived through self-destructive behaviors, serious injuries, long stretches of not seeing family and being far away from family, and very deep insecurities and failed relationships, custody fight, supervised parenting time, very dehumanizing process, false accusations, parental alienation, bankruptcy, financial problems, job layoffs, car accidents, years and years of stress, right? That would have made many people just give up. All of that happened in the same life I am living right now. And I'm still here. I'm still here building a relationship with my son, doing everything that I have to do to be in his life in the best way possible. I'm still here talking openly about the road that brought me here. And I'm still here making videos that other people relate to. And I never forget that I have a beautiful son that I love and that I adore. And he is a smart and talented young man. And he picks things up quickly. He is incredibly talented at video games, at skiing, at skateboarding, at biking. When he decides he wants to do something and learn something, he teaches himself and he quickly figures it out. He figures out how to do it well. He's very adaptable. And watching him approach things that way, it reminds me a lot of how I learned things, growing up and how I still learn things. And the only thing I truly care about in this life is being a good dad to him. And I am grateful that every decision that I made, whether it was good or bad, it led me to the place where I get to be his father. The time that we spend together, it matters more to me than anything else in my life. We laugh so hard together and we joke around constantly. And those moments, they remind me why I kept going through everything that happened. And at the same time, there is something that I think about that does scare me, and that's one day he will grow up and he will not need me the way that he does now. Life will continue on and move forward, and he will become his own man, and he'll be all grown up. And then another reality that I think about is that I will grow older, and one day I will leave him behind when I die. And thinking about those two things terrifies me. Honestly, truly, it does. And if you're around my age and you sometimes wonder whether you wasted your life, just look at the road that you actually walked. Just look at it. A lot of people have been through addiction and injuries and broken relationships, legal battles, financial problems, and years and years and years of nothing seeming stable. Those things are part of real lives, whether people talk about them or not. Most people's lives are filled with those things. My story includes a lot of those things. The drug addiction, the injuries, the isolation, the legal battles, the financial problems, the uncertainty, and the slow process of rebuilding something meaningful from everything that happened. And the only conclusion that I can draw from that road is very simple. I'm still here.